London wasn't supposed to feel haunted. But if you've ever walked past Buckingham Palace at 3 in the morning, you know the city has a way of whispering secrets it refuses to say out loud during daylight. And that night, the night this whole saga truly crystallized, the whisper wasn't rumor, it was paperwork. Official, classified, stamped with a seal the public will never actually see, moved through corridors so secure that even palace staff pretend they don't exist. The king wasn't rallying armies or sending ships across distant seas. He was authorizing something far simpler and infinitely more devastating, a financial execution without a single drop of blood. The last monetary thread tying Prince Harry to the House of Windsor snapped in those unseen hours, the way a violin string breaks mid-performance, clean, sudden, final. No ceremony, no speeches, just numbers moving silently across accounts until they landed at precisely 0. And while all of that unfolded in the oldest halls of British power, Harry and Meghan were asleep in Montecito under California moonlight, blissfully unaware that the safety net they assumed was permanent had vanished. You almost want to picture them dreaming about podcast deals, media empires, celebrity activism, and whatever vague, aspirational branding consultants keep trying to make happen. But the truth is less cinematic and more brutal. They were dreaming against a backdrop that was never structurally sound. Pause for a second, because nothing about this was impulsive. This wasn't a royal tantrum or some emotional explosion triggered by memoir sales or Netflix edits. This was institutional warfare, but conducted with the kind of professional precision that would make Machiavelli lean back in his chair and mutter something like, "Damn, that's efficient." And if that image amuses you just a little, good, because the monarchy might be ancient, but no one survives 1,000 years of politics without learning how to be cold when necessary. People always ask the wrong questions when royals do something ruthless. Was it legal? Was it ethical? Did Charles have the authority? Spoiler, the Crown's financial authority is so absolute that if the monarchy wanted to move funds by carrier pigeon, the pigeon would get diplomatic protection and the law would adjust accordingly. The real question, the one that matters, is why now? Why with such finality? The answer is uncomfortable and heavy and weirdly ordinary. The king is dying. Not tomorrow, not in the next 5 minutes, but the palace euphemisms and medical statements, the soft focus press releases about treatment and optimism, they all sit on top of a truth everyone inside the institution is forced to confront. Mortality clarifies priorities, and when you're running out of time, you stop paying for rebellions you no longer believe will burn out on their own. Like and subscribe if you're already hooked, because this rabbit hole goes way deeper than family drama and tabloids ever admitted. See, Harry has always assumed a simple formula. Royal status equals lifetime entitlement. But monarchy doesn't work like Netflix contracts. You don't get paid for existing. You get resources because you serve, because you represent the crown, because you show up in tailored suits and shake hands with people in places the nation decides matter. You don't get allowances for living in California and filming grievance documentaries next to lemon trees. Meghan reportedly detonated when the legal notification hit their attorneys, and honestly, you can almost imagine the volcanic energy in that kitchen. Espresso machine hissing in the background, security staff pretending not to hear anything, someone Googling, "Can royals even do that?" The anger wasn't about the money itself, though the sums involved could make Elon Musk raise an eyebrow. It was about strategy collapsing. Because for years, the Sussex brand relied on one foundational assumption. No matter what they did, no matter how many times they criticized the institution, there would always be inheritance. You can sell a memoir with that confidence. You can launch questionable media projects with that confidence. You can buy a $14.65 million mansion with that confidence. Remove the confidence, and suddenly it's just a house with mortgage-adjacent obligations that don't care about titles. William understood this dynamic way before his brother did. The heir has been quietly preparing for the monarchy he's going to inherit,
and that monarchy is smaller, leaner, and allergic to subsidizing people who want the perks without carrying the weight. He supported the liquidation instantly, not because he enjoys watching his brother struggle, that's too cheap an interpretation, but because institutions survive when sentimentality gets removed from the equation. While you're here, drop a comment. What would you have done in Charles's position? Indulge the prodigal son forever, or cut him loose? I'm curious where people land on this. There's no halfway status in monarchy. Either you're in the circle of obligation and privilege, or you're out. Harry and Meghan tried to invent a third category, royal emeritus, part-time monarchy, duchy light. And it turns out that concept sells well on American talk shows, but collapses instantly when confronted by centuries of constitutional habit. The liquidation didn't just remove money, it removed the illusion you can straddle both worlds indefinitely. And just to twist the knife, the funds weren't absorbed into some anonymous bureaucratic account. They were rerouted into the Duchy of Lancaster, the sovereign's private income stream. Symbolism matters in palace politics. It says this isn't about punishing a son, it's about refortifying the institution. The money will serve the crown, not California content ventures. Princess Anne's involvement is the detail that makes it impossible to dismiss this as family squabbling. Anne operates on rules that would terrify most modern adults. Duty is non-negotiable, service isn't optional, and the idea of using birthright for commercial leverage probably makes her want to throw furniture out a window. If Anne is auditing the books, loopholes are dying. She doesn't do sentiment, she does function. Now imagine what this feels like for Harry. His whole life he assumed there was always going to be a cushion, emotional, financial, symbolic. Being the spare carried humiliation, sure, but it also carried insurance, until it didn't, because spares aren't irreplaceable, and once the institution decides you don't contribute, the math gets cruel. The palace didn't liquidate his finances, it liquidated his assumptions. Subscribe if you're following this thread, because we're about to unlock the level no headline ever explains. The palace spent years preparing for this. While Harry and Meghan ran interviews and documentaries and memoir marathons, palace lawyers drew up contracts, financial strategists mapped liabilities, and accountants tracked every pound that wandered across the Atlantic. The machine wasn't sleeping, it was building a firewall that made future dependency structurally impossible. And here's the darker twist. California isn't cheap. That Montecito mansion, it's gorgeous, sure. Ocean light, manicured gardens, A-list proximity. But real estate doesn't care about royal titles. Property tax alone is 6 figures annually. Security is astronomical when you've publicly declared yourself endangered. Staff, grounds, maintenance, it's like feeding a dragon that only eats money. The Sussex business plan assumed income would be massive and consistent, but celebrity markets punish stagnation, and titles without institutional backing depreciate fast. The palace understood something the Sussex team refused to admit. You can monetize royal access once, maybe twice, but eventually the public asks, what else you got? And when the answer is more grievances dressed in different outfits, contracts start evaporating.
Charles's strategy wasn't emotional, it was leverage. A prince with guaranteed inheritance can afford to fail repeatedly. Remove the guarantee, and failure starts costing real things: lifestyle, plans, identity. That's checkmate without announcing checkmate. And then there's the gag order. Oh yes, the rumors about that part are exquisite. Imagine finally getting the financial rescue you needed, only to discover it comes with contractual restrictions on discussing palace health, internal politics, or anything that might generate the next Netflix payday. Violate it, and repayment obligations kick in. It's elegant, almost poetic. They silenced the weapon Meghan and Harry relied on by attaching a price tag to every syllable. Meghan's fury makes perfect sense through that lens. She thought the monarchy was slow, outdated, bureaucratic, the institutional version of dial-up internet.
Turns out the palace plays Go, not chess, and they were thinking 10 moves ahead while the Sussex team was still celebrating their first book deal. William's fingerprints are everywhere in this. His obsession, yes, obsession, is the streamlined monarchy, a royal family that justifies itself economically and symbolically, not a sprawling aristocratic welfare system. He learned watching his grandmother's patience and his father's indecision. When his reign comes, sentiment will not be policy. By the way, tell me in the comments if you think William is being too cold or just responsible. Royal watchers are split, and I love the arguments. What makes this even more fascinating is how Charles's illness accelerated everything. When power weakens at the top, institutions react, and in that vacuum stepped two women who are more intelligent and more underestimated than tabloids can cope with, Camilla and Anne. Camilla protects the man. Anne protects the institution. One thinks in terms of stress, peace, and emotional stability. The other thinks in terms of precedent, consequences, and survival. Their disagreement forged the final settlement, enough money that Harry wouldn't implode financially, but structured as a conditional lifeline rather than inheritance, a loan, not love, help, not support, and wrapped in legal thorns sharp enough to deter future blackmail. That's the part people don't want to admit. The monarchy fears becoming a hostage to scandal. Pay once and you'll pay forever. Anne would rather set the house on fire than allow that dynamic. Camilla wants peace before the king dies. The liquidation satisfied both. Here's the tragedy for Harry. He got his freedom, just like Edward VIII before him. And just like Edward, that freedom came packaged with exile, dependence, and slow cultural irrelevance. Meghan won the love story. Harry lost the narrative. Meanwhile, the British public, who ultimately fund this institution, have been watching with crossed arms. Taxpayers don't enjoy financing adult royals who contribute nothing except headlines. And support for monarchy in modern Britain survives on one condition: dignity, stability, value. When those evaporate, Republican sentiment grows like mold. Kate's recent health crisis illustrated the counterexample perfectly. She showed vulnerability without monetizing it, sincerity without spectacle. She strengthened the institution instead of draining it, and the audience felt it immediately. Meanwhile, Harry weaponized vulnerability for profit. It worked for a while, but markets hate repetition, and grievance has a shorter life shelf than people think. At the end of this story, because yes, we're nearing the end of this chapter, not the saga, the monarchy revealed its real operating system. It's not fairy tale weddings, waving from balconies, and Christmas speeches. It's survival, cold, unsentimental, centuries-deep survival. Charles liquidated his son's inheritance, Camilla protected her husband, Anne defended the institution, William planned for the future, Harry defended his feelings, and feelings, no matter how justified, don't fund palaces or justify constitutional roles. So now Harry sits in Montecito, financially stabilized but legally muted, free but dependent, visible but less relevant, and the monarchy hums on, older, clearer, hungrier. Drop your verdict below. Did the palace act wisely, or did it reveal a fragility that can't be ignored? I genuinely want to read what you think, because public perception is part of the battlefield now. Thanks for watching, and thank you for sticking through a story that's stranger and darker and more quietly epic than fiction tends to allow. Truly appreciate you being here.